On a summer night in 2003, in the small town of Nome, Alaska, a 19-year-old girl stepped into a police patrol car and vanished forever. 2 days later, her body was found in a gravel pit, naked, shot in the head with a single bullet. The crime scene had almost no clues, the mark of a killer who understood forensics and knew how to erase evidence. But what shocked the entire community wasn't the brutality of the crime itself, but the identity of the perpetrator, an on-duty police officer who used his very badge to hunt his prey. Welcome to the Case Files, where we bring you real cases that shocked the public with in-depth analysis and respect for the victims. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most heartbreaking and outrageous cases in Alaska's history, a case that forever changed how the law handles criminals in uniform. In this episode, we're taking a deep dive into the infamous case of the murder of Sonya Ivanoff, when the badge became the weapon. Part 1. The small town by the frozen sea. Nome, Alaska is a small town located thousands of miles to the northwest, surrounded by treacherous mountains and the fierce waters of the Bering Sea. With a population of only about 3,000 people, this is a close-knit community where everyone knows each other by name and every family story. The crime rate here is nearly half the statewide average, making Nome a peaceful place within the harsh wilderness. For the 7 officers in the Nome Police Department, the most serious duties were usually just arresting drunk and disorderly individuals or settling minor neighbor disputes. This wasn't a place with violent crime or complex cases like big cities. But everything would change in the summer of 2003, a summer that Nome residents would never forget. Sonya Ivanoff was born in 1984, a promising and talented young Alaska Native woman. She was the 6th child in a loving and close-knit Inupiat family, known for her smile and warmth that brightened every day. Friends described Sonya as a cheerful girl, approachable in the most endearing way, always bringing joy to those around her with her humor and laughter. Sonya was an outstanding basketball player with notable height and athletic talent, recognized by many. In a small town like Nome, successful athletes are always a source of community pride and special attention, practically becoming local celebrities. She wasn't just known for her athletic skills, but also for her radiant smile and the generous heart of a genuinely kind young girl. In 2002, Sonya moved from the small village of Unalaklit to Nome with a big dream in her heart. She wanted to save money to attend college in Hawaii in the fall of 2003, beginning a new chapter in her life with broader opportunities. To achieve this dream, she worked hard and lived with Timer Tawarak, her closest friend, from her playing days, whom she trusted like a sister. Timer and Sonya were inseparable, even finishing each other's sentences as if they could read each other's minds. They were true best friends, bonded so tightly they couldn't be separated, going through every joy and sorrow together. No one could predict that this beautiful friendship would be severed so cruelly by an unforgivable crime. Part 2. The Fateful Night. On the evening of August 10, 2003, Sonya and Timer went to a friend's house to play board games, simple table games filled with laughter. It was a normal evening of youth, where life's worries were temporarily set aside for just fun and relaxation. Since Timer had to work at 6 in the morning, she couldn't stay out late. Sonya wanted to visit another friend in the area, so the 2 girls decided to leave separately at different times. This was the last time Timer saw her best friend alive, though she had no idea at the time. Around 1 o'clock in the morning on August 11th, Sonya left the party and decided to walk home alone through the empty streets. She wasn't feeling well and wanted to go home and rest, thinking the walking distance wasn't far and the town was always safe as usual. On the way, a witness named Florence Habros happened to see Sonya walking alone in the darkness. This is the crucial detail that would become the most important evidence in the case. Florence witnessed a police patrol car pull up next to Sonya under the dim streetlight. The two appeared to have a brief conversation, and then Florence saw Sonya get into the patrol car before it drove off into the darkness. That was the moment at 1:26 in the morning, the last time Sonya Ivanoff was seen alive. Tamara eventually fell asleep on her friend's couch exhausted, woke up around 5 in the morning, and caught a taxi home to get ready for work. But when she got home, she discovered Sonya wasn't there, her bed still unmade from yesterday morning. Tamara thought maybe Sonya had stayed over at a friend's house, so she decided she'd call her later and went to work first. Throughout the entire day of August 11th, there was no news from Sonya, even though Tamara called many times, but no one answered. Sonya's phone rang endlessly, then went to voicemail, as if she had disappeared from this world without a word of goodbye. At this point, Tamara began to feel seriously worried, an uneasy feeling creeping into her heart like a warning that something was wrong. She called all their mutual friends and asked if they knew where Sonya was, but everyone said they hadn't seen her since last night. Some people even thought Sonya was with Tamara, and this confusion only multiplied her worry. This was extremely unusual because Sonya wasn't the type of person to just leave home without telling anyone where she was going and what she was doing. Sonya was always responsible, always letting family and friends know about everything, even the smallest matters. So the fact that no one knew where she was truly strange and alarming to those close to her, like Tamara. Part 3. The Horrifying Discovery. On August 12, 2003, about 36 hours after Tamara last saw Sonya, an official missing person report was filed at the Nome Police Department. Police immediately picked up on Sonya's name and began searching all over town, going door to door, asking everyone who might have seen her. This was a small town, so news spread fast, and soon the entire community knew Sonya was missing. Just a few hours after the search began, around 8:30 that evening on August 12th, a volunteer firefighter discovered something in the thick brush. The location was on a dirt road, rarely traveled, about 3 kilometers north of town, near the gravel pit called Bessie Pit by locals. He saw something flesh-colored through the leaves and immediately called police to the scene. Police immediately thought it might be Sonya based on the location and initial description from the person who found it. They decided to approach the scene carefully through the brush to reach the body without stepping in areas where the perpetrator might have walked, to preserve maximum evidence. This is standard procedure in homicide investigations, but no one anticipated what they were about to discover would lead to such a complex and heartbreaking investigation. Officer Byron Redburn, one of Nome's veteran police with many years of experience, was the first to examine the body. He carefully stepped through the brush, using a flashlight to scan the surroundings, and observed the scene before moving closer. He confirmed it was Sonya Ivanoff, the young girl the whole town had been searching for. Byron Redburn had been to many crime scenes in his career, and he said most crime scenes were clearly chaotic, with signs of struggle, blood, or items scattered around. But this place wasn't like that. It was too clean, too careful, as if arranged by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. The condition of the scene immediately put police on high alert. Sonya's body lay face down in the brush, completely naked except for one sock, still on her left foot. There were no obvious signs of injury initially when viewing from behind, just a few small bruises. On the victim's body were leaves stuck to her skin and hair, suggesting the body may have been there for some time. The most notable thing was the crime scene was extremely clean, with almost no clear evidence like weapons, clothing, or anything. Upon closer examination, police discovered deep bruising on her cheek and on Sonya, suggesting there may have been a struggle or she was beaten by someone before death. When Byron Redburn gently lifted Sonya's head to examine further, he discovered a gunshot wound behind her long hair, just behind the nape on the left side. This was most likely the direct cause of death for Sonya, a single bullet fired from behind into her head. The forensic examination later determined more precisely that Sonya was shot in the back of the head with a .22 caliber gun at very close range, almost point blank to the scalp. However, no shell casings were found around the scene, despite police thoroughly searching the area for hours. They also didn't find Sonya's clothes, no wallet, no shoes, no personal belongings of hers, except the single remaining sock. What does this show? The perpetrator knew exactly how to erase evidence and stage the scene systematically. He acted very carefully and had knowledge of forensics, as well as criminal investigation procedures, knowing what needed to be collected. This wasn't the impulsive act of an amateur killer or opportunistic criminal. This was the work of someone who understood how police investigate, someone who may have been professionally trained in this knowledge. Part 4. Clues from the scene. Although the scene was staged almost perfectly, investigators still discovered some important evidence the perpetrator missed. First was distinctive tire tracks discovered in the muddy area and clearly visible where the tires crossed the soft ground. What particularly caught investigators' attention was this vehicle had 3 identical tires from the same manufacturer, but one tire was a completely different type, as if hastily replaced after some incident. Police carefully took a cast of the clearest tire print in plaster, just like a dentist takes a dental impression, then sent the sample to Alaska State Forensics Lab for analysis and comparison. Near the scene, on a roadside tree branch, was very clear blue-teal paint transfer, as if a tall vehicle had scraped it while turning. Only a pickup truck or large SUV would be tall enough to scrape a tree branch at that position, nearly 2 meters off the ground. This blue-teal color closely resembled paint that car manufacturers used for some popular pickup and SUV models in the early 2000s, especially fleet vehicles. Forensic specialist Carrie K.C. from the Alaska Bureau of Investigation came to the scene and performed more meticulous examination. She discovered blood traces on the dirt road itself, not in the brush where the body was found. She confirmed it was definitely human blood using a chemical test, commonly used by doctors and investigators, to detect blood in various samples. The results showed this was a fairly large blood pool, indicating the victim bled heavily right at that location. From this evidence, investigators built an initial hypothesis about how the crime unfolded. Sonya may have been injured right on this road, not in the brush. She lay there for a period, though brief, lost a lot of blood forming a pool, then was dragged or carried into the brush by the perpetrator to hide the body. This hypothesis was further supported when careful examination of the area around the body in the brush showed almost no significant blood at all. Additionally, the body had no significant scratches or abrasions on the skin, which is very important. If the perpetrator had dragged Sonya, first then dragged her through the thorny brush and tree branches, there would certainly be many scrape marks on the flesh. But there weren't any, meaning Sonya was still clothed when dragged into the brush, and the perpetrator removed her clothes after placing the body in its final position. This is a crucial detail, showing the perpetrator had a plan and wanted to create the impression this was a random sexual assault. Part 5. The investigation hits a dead end. This was the first time in 2.5 years a woman had been murdered in the Nome area under such violent and mysterious circumstances. At this point, police understood that their available personnel and resources were completely insufficient to handle a case this complex. There were only 7 police officers in town, and they still had to continue ensuring security and order 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the entire 3,000-person town. The Nome Police Department requested emergency help from the Alaska Bureau of Investigation, particularly known by the acronym ABI. But due to the remote geographical distance and harsh weather, their forensic specialist could only fly to Nome the next morning, not immediately that night. While waiting for the expert to fly from Anchorage, to prevent anyone from returning to the scene to destroy evidence or wild animals from damaging the body, Chief Taylor and his subordinate Officer Owens volunteered to guard the scene all night. Byron Redburn then had to perform one of the most painful duties in police work, notifying the victim's family of the terrible news. He drove to the Ivanoff family's home with a heavy heart, knowing he was about to shatter their lives with a single sentence. This is one of the most heartbreaking pieces of news no family wants to hear. No mother deserves to endure. Who could imagine harming such a beautiful girl, smiling and cheerful like Sonya, a girl with her whole future ahead of her? While investigators were tracking down vehicle types, matching the blue-teal paint and distinctive tire marks, Byron Redburn went to meet Tamer to look through Sonya's room. He hoped to find some clue, maybe a diary, letters, or anything showing Sonya had issues with someone or was in danger. When looking through the photo album on the desk, Redburn pointed to a photo of Sonya with a large, obvious bruise on her arm. Tamer explained it was caused by a friend accidentally during roughhousing play. She said Sonya and she had many friends who regularly came over to watch movies, and sometimes they'd wrestle and playfully fight like kids. One of those friends was Andrew Don, or affectionately called Donnie, a young man also living in Nome. Redburn knew information that Donnie had fallen for Sonya and tried pursuing her for a long time, but unsuccessfully. And now, seeing the bruise on Sonya's arm in the photo, everything began to suggest a suspicious possibility in his mind. Redburn immediately summoned Donnie to the station for questioning to clarify his relationship with the victim. Donnie appeared at the police station looking sad and deeply shocked upon hearing of Sonya's death. He said he really liked Sonya and was heartbroken this happened. He couldn't believe such a good girl would meet such a tragic fate. He strongly insisted he didn't kill her and had clear alibi evidence because at that time he was hunting outside town dozens of kilometers from Nome with a group of friends. His friends all confirmed going hunting with Donnie at the right time, and they had photos proving it. But since Donnie slept in his own tent alone while others shared tents, no one could be 100% certain he didn't leave at some point during the night. This meant, theoretically, Donnie could have completely driven 117 kilometers from the campsite to Nome late at night to kill Sonya, then return to camp before dawn without anyone knowing. The distance by pickup could be covered in about 2 hours round trip, creating a time frame to commit the crime. Police began monitoring Donnie more closely, checking travel history, asking more of his acquaintances. However, when investigating deeper and checking Donnie's vehicle, there was no physical evidence linking him to the scene. His car didn't match the description of blue-teal paint. The tire marks didn't match either, and no traces of blood or Sonya's DNA were found. Donnie was gradually eliminated from the list of primary suspects. Part 6. Suspicion within the force. In a flash, after eliminating outside suspects, the number of people who could be the perpetrator dropped from 3,000 town residents down to one possibility no one wanted to believe. The killer might be one of Nome's 7 police officers, one of the people investigating this very case, someone wearing a uniform and badge protecting the law. Of course, none of them wanted to believe the killer was one of the colleagues they worked with every day. The officers couldn't comprehend how this could happen, why one of them, someone who swore to protect citizens, could do something so heinous. But evidence doesn't lie, and the investigation logic was pointing toward an undeniable truth. The crucial clue that couldn't be ignored was witness Florence Habros's testimony. She clearly saw Sonya get into a Nome police patrol car at exactly 1:26 in the morning on August 11th. In Nome, Patrol cars could only be used during shifts and had to be clearly logged in the shift log. No one was allowed to drive patrol cars home or use them for personal purposes. Therefore, to solve the mystery and narrow down the suspect list, they first needed to determine exactly who was on night duty when Sonya disappeared. After checking the shift log and duty roster, it turned out only 2 people were on patrol duty on Nome's streets that night. They were Stan Piscoya and Matthew Clay Owens, 2 officers with completely different backgrounds and personalities, but both highly rated for work capability. Stan Piscoya was born and raised right in Nome since childhood. He knew every street, every alley in town like the back of his hand. He was a former local basketball team captain and had coached many games for the high school girls' basketball team that Sonya played on. He knew Sonya, knew her family, and had good relationships with the community. Before joining the police force, Stan worked for 5 years at the local jail as a corrections officer, where he learned how to deal with criminals and maintain discipline. He came from a decent family and was respected in the area. No one could think he was involved in crime. Matthew Clay Owens, or called Matt, 29 years old, moved to Nome and joined the Nome Police Department 3 years earlier in 2000. Matt wasn't an Alaska native, but came from outside, seeking a fresh start in this remote land. He was known as an expert in firearms and tactics, with deep knowledge of various weapons and how to use them. Matt regularly trained other officers on how to use guns safely and effectively, on tactics for approaching dangerous suspects, and on safety procedures when handling weapons. He was rated as a good officer, professional, and dedicated to his work. Both Stan and Matt were serious officers, working tirelessly for many days straight, trying to solve Sonya's case. They guarded the scene, they interviewed witnesses, they searched for evidence with intense focus. But if one of these 2 men was the killer, that would explain perfectly why the scene had almost no significant evidence, and everything was staged so professionally. At the police academy, all cadets are thoroughly trained on how to handle crime scenes and preserve evidence. They know exactly what police will look for. They know where DNA can be collected from. They know how forensics works and how to identify perpetrators through traces. Ordinary people have absolutely no specialized knowledge like this. They never think about small details like shell casings, fingerprints, or how blood pools can reveal the angle of attack. There are things you can't learn from TV shows or detective novels, knowledge that only comes from professional training. And now, investigator Eric Pohl from the Alaska state, with 5 years' experience investigating serious crimes, was given the heavy task of determining whether one of Nome's 2 officers was a cold-blooded killer. Part 7. The Stolen Patrol Car Incident. This was an extremely sensitive task, because it not only affected justice for Sonya, but also the reputation of the entire Alaska law enforcement agency. Stan and Matt both strongly insisted they didn't put Sonya in the car that night. They didn't meet her, and they were completely innocent. But if witness Florence Habros's testimony was accurate and credible, then one of these 2 men was brazenly lying. To get to the truth, both men agreed to take a polygraph test in Anchorage, Alaska's capital city, where the most modern equipment and best experts were located. The location was chosen in Anchorage instead of Nome to ensure confidentiality and avoid influencing the local community. But then everything suddenly changed in an unexpected direction. On September 24, 2003, just a few hours before these 2 men were preparing to board a plane to Anchorage for the test, a strange incident occurred. Patrol car number 321 was suddenly stolen right from the Nome Police Department parking lot, a place considered absolutely secure and monitored by cameras. This was a serious security disaster because the car contained many important and valuable equipment, including an official handgun, baton, handcuffs, pepper spray canister, and radio communication device. An unknown person was driving a police car and carrying dangerous weapons, a real threat to public safety and the force's reputation. The entire Nome police force was immediately placed on highest alert. All appointments were canceled, including the flight to Anchorage. They had to find the car before something worse happened, before the thief used the weapons to commit crimes. 2 hours after the theft was reported, an officer urgently radioed in with a tense voice. He said he found car 321 at Bessie Pit, the very place where Sonya's body had been found before. This couldn't be a coincidence. It was too obvious, too deliberate. After a moment of tense silence over the radio, the voice suddenly shouted in panic, "They're shooting at me! I need backup now!" That person was Deputy Chief Matthew Owens, one of the 2 main suspects in the case. Byron Redburn heard the distress call and immediately drove at top speed to the scene to help his colleague. His heart pounded with worry that Matt might be injured, or worse. When he stepped out of his car at the gravel pit with gun drawn and flashlight scanning everywhere, Redburn heard nothing at all. No gunshots, no screaming. The surroundings were completely silent to a suspicious degree. Patrol car 321 sat intact with lights still on, but there was no one around except darkness and the sound of wind blowing. From the darkness behind a large boulder, Matt Owens slowly emerged with his uniform still intact and completely uninjured. He said in a trembling voice that he was attacked by 1 or more people with guns and had to hide behind rocks dodging bullets the entire time waiting for backup to arrive. But when asked for details, Matt didn't clearly see the face of the shooter fleeing in the darkness, couldn't describe what the suspect was wearing or how tall they were, didn't know where they ran or by what means of transportation, and couldn't provide any useful details. His story sounded vague and lacking logic, with almost nothing concrete. Police thoroughly searched the entire area all night with K9 units and thermal equipment, but found no one at all. No traces showing anyone else had been there besides Matt. This only increased suspicion about his story and made investigators begin questioning whether Matt was staging this entire incident. Part 8. The threatening letter and truth begins to surface. A forensic analyst from the Alaska State Laboratory came to examine car 321 the next morning and discovered something extremely strange and suspicious. A window by the driver's seat was broken from the outside, and on the front passenger seat was a white envelope along with an Alaska state ID card bearing Sonya Ivanoff's name lying right next to it. This was shocking because initial reports from family and friends never mentioned Sonya's ID card being missing or not found. No one knew it had disappeared. No one had reported it. And now it suddenly appeared here in the stolen patrol car. This raised a frightening possibility that the person who took this patrol car was the one who killed Sonya and kept her ID card as some kind of trophy or evidence. When opening the envelope with gloves to avoid destroying possible fingerprints, they discovered a handwritten letter with content full of hatred and clear threats. The letter was written in all capital letters, apparently deliberately altering handwriting to avoid recognition, with content as follows. "You pigs. I hate cops. Hate all you fucking deserving pieces of shit. Taking your car keys was as easy as taking candy from a kid. She wasn't at fault, just unlucky to run into me at the wrong time. I'll kill you all if you come near me and stop investigating. Come near me and I'll shoot, I'm not joking." The letter was immediately photographed, copied, and sent to a criminal behavioral psychology expert at FBI Quantico, Virginia, for criminal profiling analysis. This expert had decades of experience reading criminal messages through writing style and word choice. He analyzed that the person who wrote this letter definitely knew Sonya before killing her, not a random killing. The words chosen showed hatred with premeditated intent to kill and executing a calculated plan. Moreover, he warned that he would continue killing if police didn't stop investigating. This is a sign of someone confident in their abilities and ready for more violence. The crucial point the FBI expert emphasized was the phrase, "you pigs," referring to police. This is a derogatory slang term typically used within law enforcement circles or by people who have had close relationships with police. Ordinary people in Alaska rarely use this term, especially in a small town like Nome, where the relationship between police and community is still quite good. According to the expert, this almost certainly shows the letter writer is connected to the police profession, possibly works in the force, or has been trained in law enforcement. This is one of the most important clues in the case because it narrows the suspect pool down to very few people. Investigator Eric Pohl decided to recreate the attack Matt Owens described to see if it was plausible. They went to the scene at the same time, same lighting conditions, and tested possible shooting angles. After many experiments, they discovered Matt's story was nearly impossible to happen the way he told it. The hiding angle didn't match the shooting direction, the distance wasn't reasonable, and the time he spent there was too quick compared to the terrain. Every detail was off and lacked practical logic. We firmly believe the incident at the gravel pit with car 321 was crudely staged by Owens himself, investigator Mike Burrows, Pohl's colleague, said in the internal report. His purpose was to create a phantom suspect, blame an unidentified outsider, and simultaneously distract the investigation that was closing in on him. Part 9. The polygraph test and decisive evidence. After the stolen patrol car incident was thoroughly investigated, Stan Piscoya and Matt Owens finally flew to Anchorage to take the polygraph test as originally planned. Police decided to start with Stan first because he seemed more cooperative and less tense throughout the investigation process. Stan sat in the examination room with sensor wires attached to his chest, fingers and head to measure heart rate, blood pressure, breathing rate, and skin conductivity. The expert asked a series of direct and important questions. Did you kill Sonya Ivanoff? Did you drive her in the patrol car that night? Did you shoot her? Do you know who did it? Stan answered no to all questions in a calm and steady voice. The test results showed Stan wasn't lying with any of those questions. His physiological indicators were completely normal, with no signs of abnormal stress when answering. More importantly, Stan provided solid alibi evidence for the time Sonya disappeared. He insisted that around 1:26 in the morning, when Florence saw Sonya get into the patrol car, he was at the police station writing a report about a drunk and disorderly arrest he had just made earlier. Investigators checked the computer system at Nome Police Station, and access logs showed Stan actually logged into the computer and worked continuously for about 40 minutes, precisely during the time frame from 1:15 to 1:55 in the morning. He was sitting in the station, kilometers away from Sonya's disappearance scene, with undeniable electronic evidence. Therefore, Stan Piscoya was completely eliminated from the suspect list and returned to normal work. Only one person remained, Matthew Owens. But when it was his turn, Matt didn't show up at the Anchorage testing location as scheduled, nor did he board the flight from Nome. He contacted the investigation office and said he hadn't recovered mentally after the shooting incident at the gravel pit. He needed more time to stabilize psychologically before he could take the test. This was a seemingly reasonable excuse, but only increased suspicion in the investigators' eyes. At this point, all attention and investigation resources were completely focused on Matt Owens. Eric Pohl sat down and reviewed the entire case file from the beginning with fresh eyes, this time focusing on Owens's role in every aspect. He recalled that Owens was the first person to receive the missing person report for Sonya from Tamar. Owens was the one who supervised the scene all through the first night. Owens was the one who coincidentally discovered the stolen patrol car at the very place where Sonya's body was found. And Owens was the one who wrote most of the initial reports about the case. He was present at every crucial point of the investigation, as if trying to control the flow of information. When Owens finally agreed to take the polygraph test after many weeks of delay, The results were truly shocking. He failed miserably according to the examiner's assessment. Every physiological indicator showed signs of extreme stress and deception when answering questions about whether he drove Sonya, whether he killed her, and whether he knew who the perpetrator was. The machine never lies, and the undeniable numbers showed Matt Owens was hiding the truth. Part 10. The Web of Crimes and Evidence from the Fire Pit. On October 25, 2003, more than 2.5 months after Sonya disappeared, Matthew Clay Owens was officially arrested on charges of first-degree murder and evidence tampering. News spread throughout Nome as fast as wildfire in strong wind, and the community's reaction was both shocked and outraged to the extreme. When Sonya's mother, Mrs. Ivanoff, was informed that the main suspect was a police officer the family had trusted, she was struck as if by lightning and nearly fainted. She couldn't believe the person they respected, the person whose duty was to protect her daughter, was the very one who took her life. Immediately after news of Owens's arrest was widely published in local newspapers and television, phones at Nome Police Station and the Alaska Bureau of Investigation office rang non-stop for days. Many local women, especially Alaska Native women, called to tell stories that were hauntingly similar and terrifying. They said that over the previous 2 years, Owens had picked them up in his patrol car multiple times when they were walking alone at night. At first he seemed kind, said he'd take them home safely, but then drove to deserted places and forced them to have sex by threatening arrest or using weapons. After assaulting them, he'd drop them off in desolate places and taunt them with contemptuous words. "Go ahead and tell. Nobody's gonna believe a dirty drunk like you. Who's gonna believe you over me, a cop?" A total of 6 women officially came forward, accusing Owens of rape over 2 years, all occurring when he was on duty and using the patrol car. Each incident was accompanied by threats of arrest if they didn't comply, and later, threats to kill them or that no one would believe them if they dared report. History showed Owens's level of violence escalated gradually over time in a deeply concerning way. Initially, he only exploited power and position to coerce sexual relations while on night patrol duty. Then he began using his handgun to threaten directly. "Don't do what I say. I'll shoot you right now." And finally, when Sonya dared refuse him, Owens actually pulled the trigger. A woman who had a brief relationship with Owens revealed an extremely important detail to police. She said just 1 week after Sonya's body was found, Owens invited her camping at a remote area north of Nome, over 100 kilometers from town. During that camping trip, she clearly remembered Owens burning something in the fire pit until late at night, continuously adding wood and stirring the flames until everything burned to ash. At the time, she didn't think much of it, just normal trash burning. But after Owens was arrested, she suddenly remembered and felt frightened about what might have been incinerated in that fire. The investigation team immediately organized a trip to the campsite location 113 kilometers north of Nome, following the woman's directions. They brought screening equipment, shovels, and evidence bags to carefully excavate the fire pit ash. After many hours of hard labor, they found the remains of a leather belt, bra, and shoelaces belonging to Sonya, all charred but still identifiable thanks to metal details and brand labels. Continuing to screen through each layer of ash and soil, they found 4 keys burned black and deformed from high heat. One was Owens's own mailbox key with the room number still readable. The other 3, after being cleaned and examined, one was identified as belonging to a woman named Karen, who had been raped by Owens, according to previous information. Karen told police she clearly remembered the key fell out of her pocket while struggling to get out of the patrol car after being assaulted. But she was too frightened and just wanted to escape, so didn't dare go back to pick it up. Police believe Owens found the key while cleaning the car after killing Sonya, and although he didn't know where the key came from or whose it was, He feared it could become evidence linking him to other victims, so decided to incinerate everything at once. This shows Owens carefully planned to erase evidence systematically after committing crimes. Additionally, Owens's ex-wife provided another important piece of evidence, showing he knew about the disappearance before there was an official report. She testified that early morning on August 11th, before Sonya was reported missing, Owens called her and said she needed to take their son away immediately because a girl named Sonya Ivanoff was missing, and he had to focus on the search work. This was completely abnormal because at that time, there was no official report filed. And how did Owens know Sonya was missing when no one had reported it? An acquaintance named Warren Little also testified about a strange conversation with Owens. Warren said Owens told him, before there was any official forensic report from the laboratory, that no DNA evidence was found on Sonya's body and there were no signs of sexual assault. Owens even offered a hypothesis that it seemed someone gave Sonya a ride, possibly had sex, and when she jumped out of the car to escape, the person panicked and shot her with a handgun. How could an ordinary officer know forensic details that hadn't been released and offer a hypothesis almost exactly accurate about how the crime unfolded, unless he was the one who committed it? Part 11. Crime Reconstruction and Trial. Based on all evidence collected, the investigation team reconstructed the events of the night of August 11th as follows. Sonya was walking home alone around 1:26 in the morning. Matthew Owens, patrolling in car number 321, saw her and stopped under the pretense of taking her home safely. Sonya trusted him because he was a police officer, someone supposed to protect civilians, so she got in the car. On the way, Owens may have suggested or forced sexual relations, but Sonya firmly refused and was completely sober and clear-headed. Unlike previous victims who were often intoxicated and easily threatened, Sonya was a young girl with a good reputation in the community, an athlete known and loved by many. Owens realized that if she reported him, people would believe her, and his career, as well as his life, would be completely destroyed. In panic and rage at being rejected, Owens struck Sonya to prevent her from leaving the car. When Sonya struggled and possibly threatened to report to police, Owens decided to solve the problem in the most extreme way: murder to silence her. He took the .22 caliber gun he was carrying, a gun investigators believe was taken from the police station evidence room and later returned so it couldn't be traced. With experience as a firearms expert and shooting instructor, Owens had the skills and access to all types of weapons in the station. He shot Sonya once in the back of the head, right on the road near the gravel pit, where she bled heavily, forming a pool on the ground. Then he dragged the body into the brush, removed her clothes to create the impression this was a random sexual assault by a pervert, collected all her personal belongings, including clothes, purse, and ID card. He took the shell casing, staged the scene professionally as he was trained, and drove away in the darkness. In the following days, he incinerated the clothes and evidence at a location over 100 kilometers away. He actively participated in the investigation, supervised the scene, wrote reports, and tried to influence the investigation in the wrong direction. When he felt he was about to be discovered, he staged the stolen patrol car incident and fake attack to create a phantom suspect. The first trial took place in January 2005 right in Nome. Matthew Clay Owens went to trial on charges of first-degree murder and evidence tampering in a large-scale trial. However, after many days of tense proceedings with dozens of witnesses and evidence, the trial ended, with a hung jury unable to reach a unanimous verdict, leading to a mistrial declaration and the need for retrial. Jacob Ivanoff, Sonya's older brother, shared his deep disappointment. I knew from the start that Nome wasn't the right place to try this case. Because some jurors had gone to church with Matt Owens, they knew him and his family. So it was hard to be completely impartial. This is one of the big problems with trials in small communities where everyone has relationships with each other. The second trial was moved to Kotzebue, another Alaska city farther from Nome, to ensure fairness and objectivity. The trial lasted 6 weeks with hundreds of pieces of evidence presented, dozens of witnesses called to testify, and intense legal arguments between prosecution and defense. After 3 days of carefully weighing all evidence and testimony, on December 6, 2005, the Kotzebue jury officially found Matthew Clay Owens guilty on both charges of first-degree murder and evidence tampering. Matthew Clay Owens received a total sentence of 101 years in prison, including 99 years for first-degree murder and an additional 2 years for evidence tampering. With this sentence, Owens will have to remain in prison for life with no possibility of early parole or significant sentence reduction. Part 12. Conclusion and Message. The case of Officer Matthew Owens murdering Sonya Ivanoff not only shocked the entire town of Nome, but also left a serious scar in the hearts of the community and Alaska's law enforcement profession. In citizens' eyes, police are those entrusted with protecting their safety, the living symbol of justice and order. Yet the brutal truth is that the very person given that sacred responsibility, who carried the badge and gun, was the one who committed the worst crime a community could witness. Sonya Ivanoff, a promising young girl just coming of age, intelligent, kind, with friends and family who loved her dearly, was killed not for personal grudge, not for prior conflict, but simply because she dared say no to someone with power. That very refusal, the self-respect of a young girl who knew how to protect herself, drove Owens, a man harboring hatred of women and craving absolute control, to commit murder coldly and cruelly. This case raises big and profound questions that each of us, wherever we are, needs to seriously contemplate. What can we do to ensure those who wear police uniforms truly deserve the trust the public places in them? How can those who have been victims of abuse of power, especially Native women and vulnerable groups, find their voice and be taken seriously without being judged or discriminated against? And how many more cases similar to Sonya's have never been brought to light? How many victims are still silent in fear? This case is also a painful reminder of the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women and people, particularly known by the acronym MIW or MMIP. Alaska Native women face rates of sexual violence and murder many times higher than other population groups, and their voices are often silenced, dismissed, or not taken seriously in the justice system. Sonya was one of them, and her story must be told and retold so we don't forget. We may not be able to change the painful past, but we absolutely can learn from it to build a better future. Every single name like Sonya Ivanoff, every single sentence for an abuser of power is a small but important step on the long road, fighting for true justice and equality for all people. Thank you for listening to the Case Files. If this story moved you, please share it with others who care about justice. Remember Sonya Ivanoff not merely as a victim of violence, but as a young woman with dreams of going to college in Hawaii, with a loving family and loyal friends, with a bright future that was cruelly stolen from her by someone who should have protected her. Let her name be a constant reminder that justice, though sometimes delayed and difficult to achieve, must always be pursued with determination and courage. Subscribe to our channel, like this video, and leave a comment sharing your thoughts on how we can better protect vulnerable communities. Your engagement helps us continue bringing these important and often overlooked stories to light. Until next time, stay safe, stay informed, and never stop questioning those in power.